Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're doing something really fun. We're tracking down the literary origins of pirates. We're diving into the surprising and honestly kind of wild single source for almost every pirate cliché you know and love. It's crazy to think about how one child's tale literally shaped our entire cultural imagination of the high seas, but that's exactly what happened. Let's get right into it.
But before we really jump into the story, let's just ask ourselves, where did all these enduring pop culture images actually come from? The treasure maps, the peg legs, the talking parrots, we see them absolutely everywhere, right? From cheap Halloween costumes to massive billion-dollar Hollywood blockbusters. You'd naturally think, oh, these ideas must have been stitched together from hundreds of years of real, gritty maritime history. But actually, the truth is way more focused than that, and a whole lot more interesting.
What's truly wild here is that every single one of these iconic tropes, peg-leg sailors, parrots perched on shoulders, treasure maps where X literally marks the spot, and even that legendary boisterous cry of yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum, they weren't pulled from historical records. Nope, they were all born from a single novel published back in 1883, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. This book is the definitive blueprint for the pirate adventure.
So how did this all come about? Well, originally, this tale was serialized in a children's magazine called Young Folks. And get this, it was under the title, The Sea Cook. Not quite as catchy, right? Stevenson actually wrote the story just to entertain his stepson, Lloyd. The whole thing was sparked by a map the two of them drew together for fun one afternoon. What started as a simple, playful exercise to amuse a kid ended up, completely accidentally, creating a massive global cultural phenomenon.
Now, the crucial thing to keep in mind is that this isn't just some breezy, run-of-the-mill adventure story. At its core, Treasure Island is a profound Bildungsroman. Yeah, big fancy literary term, I know. It just means a coming-of-age story that focuses heavily on the moral and psychological growth of its hero. So, through the eyes of our young protagonist, Jim Hawkins, we're going to watch a boy navigate extreme danger, totally devastating betrayal, and some super heavy moral complexity, all to become a man.
And man, the chaotic, suspenseful sequence of events that kicks this all off is just brilliant. We start out at the quiet, unassuming Admiral Benbow Inn, run by Jim and his ailing dad. But then, everything changes. This rough, paranoid sailor named Billy Bones arrives, clearly terrified and hiding from his past. He pays Jim to keep a lookout, but, danger finds him anyway. A terrifying blind beggar named Pew shows up, Billy Bones drops dead, and Jim makes this frantic discovery in Bones' old sea chest, a map to the notorious Captain Flint's buried treasure. Boom! The local squire and doctor outfit a ship called the Hispaniola, and the hunt is officially on.
Let's just pause for a second on one of the most terrifying elements of that whole opening sequence. The dread builds so rapidly at the end with the delivery of the black spot by that blind beggar, Pew. This is a concept Stevenson completely invented for the novel, and it is chilling. It's a literal pirate summons that signifies an absolute, inescapable death sentence. The mere sight of this little piece of paper literally scares the secretive, heavy-drinking Billy Bones right into a fatal stroke. That is some serious narrative power.
Okay, so after finding Captain Flint's treasure map, complete with red ink, naturally, Squire Trelawney heads down to Bristol to hire a crew for the Hispaniola. You can almost hear the sailors belting out this legendary shanty as they prep for the voyage, right? And it's right there, down on the bustling Bristol waterfront, that Trelawney meets arguably the most important character in all of pirate history, a charming, cheerful, one-legged tavern cook who comes highly, highly recommended.
And this sets up the absolute core dynamic of the whole story. On one side, we've got young Jim Hawkins. He's this innocent cabin boy, just thrilled to be on a grand adventure. On the other side, we have Long John Silver, the ship's cook, complete with a pet parrot named Captain Flint on his shoulder. Silver seems incredibly capable and, honestly, deeply loyal. He tells Jim these great stories, treats him with total kindness, and this complex, almost father-son dynamic really starts to form between them. Jim genuinely grows to admire the guy. But then, out on the open ocean, the tone suddenly, violently shifts from an upbeat adventure to absolute terror. Picture this. One night, just trying to escape the cold wind, Jim hides inside a near-empty apple barrel on the deck. Through the wooden slats, in pitch blackness, he quietly overhears Silver talking to some of the other sailors. And Jim learns, to his absolute horror, that Silver was actually once Captain Flint's quartermaster. He's a master manipulator, wearing a mask of friendship, and he's actively plotting a bloody mutiny to murder the officers and steal the treasure. So the second the Hispaniola reaches the lush, mist-covered shores of Treasure Island, the tension just completely snaps.
Silver leads the pirates in an open rebellion, and gunfire erupts everywhere. In the absolute chaos of it all, Jim flees alone into the dense jungle, and that's where he runs into Ben Gunn. Ben is a former pirate who was marooned by Captain Flint 3 years ago. The guy is half mad, dressed head to toe in animal skins, and above all else, he just desperately, intensely wants a piece of cheese. It's a great little bizarre detail. Meanwhile, the loyal officers retreat to this old wooden stockade on the island, and a really brutal, deadly siege begins. Throughout all this insane violence, Jim shows some seriously extraordinary bravery. He proves this is truly his coming-of-age moment. He actually sneaks away from the fort, boards the pirate-controlled ship all by himself, and gets into this vicious do-or-die fight with a pirate named Israel Hands. Jim somehow survives, manages to cut the anchor rope, and beaches the ship in a hidden cove, triumphantly denying the mutineers their only way off the island. But talk about a short-lived victory. The wave of triumph crashes into pure dread when he finally makes his way back to the stockade, only to find it's fallen, and he is now staring right into the face of Long John Silver. He's a prisoner.
Now, this bizarre juxtaposition right here is exactly what makes Long John Silver such an incredibly compelling, enduring villain. Because while the rest of the bloodthirsty pirates just want to kill the captured Jim on the spot, Silver steps in and protects him. See, Silver operates by his own totally twisted, morally gray code. He genuinely respects Jim's spirit and his courage, so he becomes simultaneously Jim's protector and the ruthless pirate captain who would happily slit the throats of the boy's friends to get his hands on that gold. It is a fascinating dynamic.
Driven by pure greed and mounting paranoia, the mutineers force Silver and Jim to lead them deep into the jungle, following Flint's map to the exact treasure site. The tension is incredibly high here. Silver's authority over his men is basically hanging by a thread. They finally reach the spot marked with the red X, but the suspense just pauses dramatically when they look down into the dirt. I mean, what happens when you finally reach the ultimate prize you've killed for, but you find absolutely nothing? In this massive, brilliant subversion of expectations, they dig wildly into the earth only to find the hole is completely empty, except for a literal skeleton left by Flint as a grim little joke. The pirates are instantly furious, totally convinced Silver has tricked them. But here is the ultimate, incredibly ironic twist. The half-mad, completely harmless Ben Gunn had already found the treasure months ago. Yep, the cheese-obsessed castaway had secretly dug up the entire fortune and moved it safely to his cave, and the loyal crew, they had known about this the entire time.
So just as the pirates are about to turn their weapons on Silver and Jim, gunshots ring out from the tree line. The loyal crew, backed up by Ben Gunn, absolutely ambush the mutineers. The pirates are defeated, and the good guys load this massive, unimaginable fortune onto the Hispaniola. But here's the kicker. Rather than bring Silver back in chains to face the hangman, Dr. Livesey allows the morally ambiguous pirate to quietly slip away into the night at their first port, taking just a small bag of gold with him. He just vanishes, leaving his final fate a total, lingering mystery.
Okay, let's dive into this thematic legacy, because this is why the story still matters so much today. Stevenson didn't just write a fun, swashbuckling adventure for kids. He infused the whole thing with deep, resonant, thematic weight. He showed us that the line between good and evil is super blurry, that unchecked greed only brings suffering, and that trust is an incredibly fragile thing. By proving that pure evil can be deeply, undeniably charming, he shaped literally every pirate narrative that followed. The pirates you grew up watching on screen, they all share Silver's DNA, from J.M. Barrie's Captain Hook and Peter Pan to Jack Sparrow in modern films like Pirates of the Caribbean.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with Jim Hawkins' true realization. Yes, he returns home rich, beyond his absolute wildest dreams, but he is no longer a boy. He's a man who has looked death in the face and navigated some incredibly dark moral ambiguity. The book ends with him saying he still wakes up in cold sweats dreaming of that one-legged cook and his squawking parrot. It's a powerful reminder that Jim's adventure, and honestly perhaps all great adventures, was never really just about the gold. It was about discovering who you truly are when tested by the world. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.